Welcome back, viewers, to the latest researches and news. Today we have major battlefield reports as the war in Ethiopia escalates on every front. First of all, we will update you about intense fighting confirmed on the front lines. We have received videos. The most significant clash, Raya Kobo. After that, about senior government personnel defect to Fano in East Gojam, including 2 high-ranking police officials, militia members detained for refusing to deploy toward the Tigray border. After that, about senior Ethiopian National Defense Force commander Asifa Chiko ambushed, soldiers killed and wounded. Fano controls the supply route. And in last, about Tigray People Liberation Front forces advancing toward Alamata on the A2 highway, the strategic corridor where the Ethiopian National Defense Force has concentrated its defenses. The front lines are closing in. Viewers, the most significant battlefield report tonight comes from Raya Kobo in North Wulo Zone, and the numbers, if confirmed, represent one of the heaviest single engagement losses for government-aligned forces in recent fighting. Fighting erupted between Fano fighters and government forces across multiple locations in the Raya Kobo area near the Amid River and around the Robit and Menjelo localities close to Robit town. According to the report, the toll on the government side was severe. More than 58 fighters killed. An additional 17 wounded and transported to hospitals in Waldia and Kobo for treatment. We have reported before on why the Raya Kobo area keeps appearing in these updates. This is the contested Raya Belt, a zone of overlapping territorial claims, shifting control, and strategic importance that connects North Wulo to the Tigray border. It is one of the areas through which any link between Fano and Tigray Defense Force forces can be established or disrupted. The Ethiopian National Defense Force has been trying to secure the Waldia Kobo corridor. Fano has been contesting every kilometer of it. If the figures from Raya Kobo are accurate, and we present them as claimed rather than confirmed, this engagement represents one of the most intense clashes in this particular stretch of the conflict. But beyond the military toll, something happened in Raya Kobo that must not be buried under the battlefield numbers. An artillery shell struck a residential area in Aradum. A 16-year-old civilian was killed. 16 years old, a child, not a fighter, not a combatant, someone living in a town near a battle who was struck by artillery that had no business landing where it did. This is the pattern that repeats itself in every update we cover. Artillery fired toward contested areas, landing in residential neighborhoods, killing people who had no part in the fighting. The military toll matters, but the civilian toll must be reported alongside it always. From Enaj Enauga Woreda in East Gojam Zone, another report of government forces firing artillery into civilian areas. More than 15 rounds of artillery were fired, reportedly originating from Felej Biran town and landing in the Koso Zuria and Debray Joinet residential areas. The shelling took place at night. Casualty figures from this incident are not yet confirmed. That is a recurring feature of how this conflict gets documented. The strike is reported immediately, but the human toll takes time to verify as communities assess damage and account for the injured and killed. What is confirmed is the pattern. Nighttime shelling. Residential neighborhoods. Artillery rounds landing where families live. This is not collateral damage in the conventional sense. 15 rounds fired into residential areas is not a stray shell. It is a sustained barrage targeting zones where civilians are present. We will update the casualty figures from Enaj Enauga as verified reports reach us. Now to 2 developments from Goncha Siso Enese, Woreda in East Gojjam that together tell a story of an army losing people from within. First, more than 8 government personnel have defected to Fano, including 2 senior police officials. These are not low-level recruits or frontline soldiers exhausted by battle. Senior officials, people who held rank, who had access to government facilities and information, who made a calculated decision to leave government service and cross to the resistance. Senior defections carry a different weight than ordinary desertions. They carry institutional knowledge, they carry networks, and they carry a signal to everyone else still inside the system if people at that level are leaving. What does that say about where this is going? Second development from the same Woreda. 2 militia members were detained in Gindewein town after reportedly refusing orders to redeploy toward the Tigray regional border. We have covered the broader story of militia being mobilized toward the Tigray border in previous updates. What makes this development significant is that it provides a specific, localized data point on a trend that has been building militia members across Amhara resisting deployment orders to a front they did not sign up to fight on. Forced to go to the Tigray border. Refusing, then detained for refusing. An army that needs to detain its own militia for refusing deployment orders is not a cohesive fighting force. It is a force dealing with serious fractures in its own ranks before the major offensive it is supposedly preparing for has even begun. Now, a report that has significant implications for the Ethiopian National Defense Force's strategic position in the region. Senior Ethiopian National Defense Force Commander Asifa Chiko, associated with the Ethiopian National Defense Force Command operating in the Afar region, was reportedly traveling in a convoy on the Woldia-Chifra Road when the convoy was ambushed. The Woldia-Chifra Road is not just any route. It is a key military supply artery connecting the Afar region with the Wulo area, one of the corridors the Ethiopian National Defense Force has been relying on to supply its forces in North Wulo as it consolidates along the A2 highway cities. According to reports, Commander Chiko survived the attack. However, several soldiers traveling with the convoy were reportedly killed or wounded. We present this as reported, not yet confirmed by the Ethiopian government or Ethiopian National Defense Force. No official statement has been issued. But here is the strategic implication that matters. Regardless of the exact details, Fano fighters have reportedly established positions along this supply route. If that is accurate, if Fano is operating on the road that connects Afar to Woldia, then the supply line the Ethiopian National Defense Force has been counting on to sustain its defensive concentrations is not secure. We reported in a previous video that the Ethiopian National Defense Force pulled back to urban centers along the A2 highway precisely to protect its supply lines. If Fano can operate on those supply lines, attacking convoys, ambushing commanders, establishing positions on key roads, then the Ethiopian National Defense Force's defensive strategy is in trouble before the larger battle has even begun. The Woldia-Chifra ambush is not just an attack on a convoy. It is a statement that Fano is contesting the very roads the Ethiopian National Defense Force needs to survive its own strategic retreat. And now, the development that brings the entire strategic picture into focus. Reports from ground sources, not independently verified, but received from credible contacts, indicate that Tigray People Liberation Front forces have been seen moving in the Alamata area, advancing toward positions near the Amhara-Tigray border, on and around the A2 highway. We cannot share the visuals we have received at this time. Operational security for the fighters involved is more important than the footage. We have made this commitment before, and we will keep it. But the reported movement matters enormously because of where Alamata sits. Alamata is located on the A2 highway near the Amhara-Tigray border inside the Tigray region. It is a town with deep historical and political significance contested territory between Tigray and Amhara communities for years, and it sits directly on the road that connects Tigray to North Wollo, the same corridor where Fano is fighting in Raya Kobo, where the Ethiopian National Defense Force has concentrated in Waldia and Kobo, and where the Waldia-Shifra supply route runs. Now connect all of tonight's reports together. Fano is fighting government forces in Raya Kobo, the zone between the Tigray border and Waldia. The Ethiopian National Defense Force has concentrated its defenses in Waldia and Kobo along the A2. Senior Ethiopian National Defense Force commanders are being ambushed on the supply route connecting Afar to Waldia, and Tigray Defense Force forces are reported to be moving toward Alamata from the Tigray side of the border toward the same A2 corridor. This is a pincer movement information. Fano from the south and west, Tigray Defense Force from the north, both moving toward the same highway, both targeting the same defensive positions. The Ethiopian National Defense Force pulled back to protect the cities and highways. But the cities and highways are now being approached from multiple directions simultaneously. The strategy of defending the urban corridor only works if that corridor remains defensible. Tonight's reports suggest it is being challenged from both ends at once. Let us bring tonight's full picture together, because tonight's reports are not isolated incidents. They are connected pieces of a single developing story. In Raya Kobo 58 government forces killed, a 16-year-old child dead from artillery. The A2 corridor is a battlefield. In East Gojam 15 artillery rounds on residential neighborhoods overnight. The pattern of civilian targeting continues. Senior government officials are defecting to Fano. Militia members are being detained for refusing deployment to the Tigray border. The army is breaking from within. A senior Ethiopian National Defense Force commander was ambushed on the supply route the federal military depends on. Fano controls the road. And from the North Tigray Defense Force forces are reported moving toward Alamata. The A2 highway, the Ethiopian National Defense Forces defensive spine, is being approached from both directions. The Ethiopian National Defense Force retreated from the countryside to protect the cities and highways. Tonight, those cities and highways are under pressure from every side. We will keep watching every development as it unfolds. Like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss an update from the front lines.